Hello, Tech Pros, episode 192.
Communicate with others clearly. If we can find a way to think about what is the other person's need and how can I put it in terms that they'll understand, that is going to carry you in a huge, huge way to the destination you want to get to.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Tom Cooper. Happy Wednesday, Tom.
Happy Wednesday.
Are you ready to lead us through this interview?
I don't know about that, but it should be a good conversation.
See what I did there? Leadership
I
Wednesday.
lead us. That's good.
Yeah, well. Tom Cooper, father of 7, started out his career as a computer geek. Yay, go Tom. Along his journey, he worked in big and small companies, building teams, running projects, and building software products. Today, Tom is a speaker, trainer, and coach. He says he gets really excited when he works with people who want to become better leaders by getting better at planning, communicating, and connecting with others. So Tom, that's awesome. I love that mission. I love what you've got going on there, and I can't wait to talk about that. But first, let's talk about maybe your early career as a computer geek, right? Because there's a lot of computer geeks on here on this show in the audience today who are like, yeah, I don't know about the whole leadership stuff. So we'll see what kind of geek Tom is first before we judge whether or not we want to learn about leadership. So tell us about how you got started.
Oh, man, I've always loved technology. I was 12 years old. I saved up enough money to buy my first computer with my paper route money,
Nice.
trying to figure out how to write code on my Radio Shack color computer, trying to code games on that because I thought that'd be a lot of fun to do, and loved being involved with technology. And eventually got a degree in computer science, worked professionally doing a lot of kind of geeky things. Back in the 90s, I ran Linux as my desktop operating system for 9 years. So I think there may be some Linux geeks out there that would get that. So I had to calculate the monitor timings so that the video configuration wouldn't blow up my monitor because the card could drive it faster than the monitor could do it, that kind of nerdy stuff. Loved all that stuff and really enjoyed doing hands-on technical work. So wrote code, looked at how to solve business problems with code, and led people through teams that did integrations of commercial off-the-shelf products into big enterprise architecture stuff. Ran products for a SaaS big data company, doing analytics on telephone call records. So all kinds of nerdy stuff. Lots of fun.
That's awesome. I had friends who had the Radio Shack color computer and I was jealous of them because they had more games than I did. And I had the Texas Instruments TI 994A, and
I wanted one of those. And it was cool. And the joysticks on the Radio Shack color computer were lame. They didn't even center. they were just potentiometers. They just go wherever. You couldn't fly straight because you could never get it exactly centered in the right place.
What I found over the course of my teenage years and then as an adult is the grass is always greener on the other side, and we just need one of each. We need one of each operating system. We need one of each computer, and then we just have like an entire storage closet full of computers that we can whip out and play with whenever the urge strike us, and that's okay. That's good. That's good times.
Oh my goodness, good memories.
Yep, good times. So Tom, as you developed your career, you talked about all the technical stuff going from, just all the different things that you worked in over the course of your career. What made you kind of shift and say, you know what, instead of being just strictly hands-on and strictly about the code and strictly about the networks and the infrastructure and everything, I'm going to move into leadership?
Well, I got mad. Because we had smart people and we had really good technology. And we had good business problems we were solving, and stuff kept going to crap. I mean, it was just falling apart. And I'm sure that nobody in the audience, whoever you are listening right now, you've never had a tech project blow up. But my goodness, in my experience, it was over and over and over again, and it just made me nuts. Because how can it be that when you've got smart people and you've got technology that most of the time works pretty darn well, how can it possibly be that your projects would consistently tank? And it made me frustrated because I couldn't see a pathway. Even when people brought in project management, which did help, we were more successful with project management, but even with projects that were run by certified project managers using, approved corporate methodologies, we still had failures. And I really stumbled into the concept that I could learn leadership, that it wasn't something that you were just hit, with a leadership stick, or you were born with leadership, or whatever, that I could actually learn some of these ideas. And I thought it was kind of crazy when I first heard the idea, and then I started experimenting with it, and I discovered that these ideas actually work. And that blew my mind, that there was a science to the way that you could start to influence other people, that you could acquire, that you didn't have to have the charisma of Bill Clinton, that you can actually start to discover some of these ideas and then be able to influence other people to help get what you want. Instead of being so task focused and saying, Chad, did you finish XYZ today? I could actually connect with you, and then you'd want to help me. That was a huge shift for me, that instead of compelling you to help me, that I could get you to want to help me. That was amazing. So that was kind of the journey that I went down, where I stumbled into the idea that I could learn to lead people, and I started reading books and going to conferences. And frankly, my employer didn't see it, the value in it. So I was actually paying out of my pocket to go to some of these conferences, because I was realizing how valuable it could be to me if I could learn how to do some of these things. Because I found that when I applied some of these ideas, my projects did better, and my team got healthier, and
Nice.
My customers were happier. And I'm like, wait, there's something here. This is really cool. How do we make more of this?
Yeah, absolutely. We found something that works. Now, how do I replicate it, right? How do I do more of it? And I completely feel you with seeing those results, right? Once I started working on my leadership skills, once I started, honestly, just working on my people skills in general, like my career started developing at an astronomical rate. I felt stuck in many times in my career where I was really focused on trying to sharpen the same saw over and over, meaning going back and being a better developer, going back and being a better geek in general, right? And learn really, really technical, arcane things that nobody else really cared about, and to really apply those in the most efficient manner. And then I'm looking around going, my gosh, how come nobody's using this? Isn't it awesome? Well, nobody seems to value it except for me. Then why am I working on this? And so I was kind of dragged kicking and streaming into leadership. But it sounds like when you say you stumbled onto it, what exactly was that process? How did you discover leadership, or specifically the thought that you could change and you could learn and you could adapt and move into this area?
Well, I'm really thankful. I happen to be in a church where the senior pastor was really interested in leadership. And so he started a program of leadership development for the guys in the church, where he would pick some guys every year and take them through a leadership development program that he created. And so one of the years he asked me if I would be interested in being in the program, and I said, okay, sure, that sounds like a good thing to do. And it was in that process of where he shared books and ideas with me. We read about a book a month. We did some public speaking stuff. We did a bunch of things to grow our understanding of ourselves and understanding of influencing others. And it was a John Maxwell book, Developing the Leader Within You, which really, really connected with me. And that helped me to understand that I could grow my leadership skills, that I was responsible for what I was going to do, that I could learn how to help get people to want to help me. And I think a lot of times geeks are sold a bill of goods, that we think that the geekier we are, the better it's going to be. And the first year out of school, you don't know a whole lot, and you study some stuff and you get geekier and they pay you more. And then that happens in year number 2. And it happens in year number 3. And then until about year number 5, and they say, hey, Chad, you're doing a great job. We need you to run this project, or we need you to show these younger guys how to do this stuff, or we need you to take over this other team that's doing some stuff that we don't want to have happen. And all of a sudden, that stuff that you've kind of made your bones on, you've really, that geeky stuff, it's not enough. And Stanford Research did a study, and they said that 87% of business success comes from people knowledge, 13% comes from technical knowledge.
Wow.
So, and I know that they're skeptics, because geeks, we're all skeptics, right? So let's pretend that they're wrong by 50%, right? Let's say they're wrong by 50%, that it's not 90% people skills. Let's say it's only 45% people skills. For most of us geeks, have we put 45% of our training into studying and learning how to deal with people? Even if Stanford's wrong by 50%, right? Even if they're completely wacko, most of us are still not preparing at almost 50% of our training, thinking, and learning around how do I do a better job of interacting with others.
Yeah, I'm honestly looking back at all the people that I've worked with, all the people that I know in the software development industries and just IT industries in general, and I can't think of 45% of the people that I've worked with who have put any effort on leadership, right? I can think of leaders, and I can think of managers, and I can think of a few technical people who were geeks and technical people, IT professionals at the beginning of their career, and then started learning. Man, but that's like a 1% of the people that I know.
Yeah. So when you think about when you recognize that there's a difference between what it takes to be successful in technology and what it takes to successfully deliver business solutions using technology, they're different skill sets. And so, I've got kids, and I have one kid who's mad because he couldn't dribble a basketball the first time he tried. And I said, it's a skill. You got to practice the skill, right? You can't just magically show up and be perfect at something. And the same thing's true of influencing and leading people. It's a skill, and you've got to figure out how to take it out and drive it around the block, and you'll screw it up some, and get back in it and try again, because we're learning as we go, for sure.
Okay, so before the call, you had mentioned to me that you came up with this idea of these 4 pillars or 4 stages of leadership in technology, 4 stages of leadership for geeks. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. This concept is the 4 levels of thinking as a geek leader, because we have to change our thinking before we change anything else. We all do what works, and if we think we know what works, we're going to keep doing that, even if it doesn't work. As long as we believe it works, we're going to keep doing it. So I mentioned we start out as Uber Geeks, and we're an individual contributor, and we've got to be great at that. And I call that level 1. But realistically, as an individual, I need to lead myself. And would I follow me? When you start to think about, are you taking the initiative? Are you being a person who's going to look for ways to solve problems? Are you going to be able to lead you to success? And that's kind of where we start. And sadly, as you point out, most of the time, that's where people stop. They don't go any farther than that. And I think there's another level you have to get to that I call the team member. And that concept is 1 is too small a number to achieve greatness. That if we want to do anything significant, it's going to take more than me. I'm not big enough to do something significant, so I'm going to have to work with others. And the first part of it is I've got to be able to connect with people on my team to be able to do some stuff. And then the next is I get to start influencing people on the team so that they can help me. I help them, they help me. And Stephen Covey talked about that kind of interdependence, that we work with each other. You step up from level 2 to level 3, you become a team leader. Now you're a boss. But your job is not to do the work. It's to help them do the work and help them become a better team member. Not just an individual, but a better team member. So if a good boss is doing their job well, they're going to help their team members get better at being team members and not just individual contributors. And then the 4th level is what I call team builder, and it's about succession planning. I'm not just creating better team members, but I'm creating team leaders. I'm going to create people who will be able to lead teams on their own and bring people from that individual contributor level up to team member to team leader themselves. Because realistically, if I want to do something massive, Zuckerberg, smart guy, but he couldn't have built Facebook by himself.
Right.
He had to have help. And if he wanted to have the kind of impact that Facebook has on our lives today, the only way to get there is through getting the help of other people. And he's got to be thinking about how he's building teams and what he's doing to help grow and scale those kinds of things. So I think if we can start to recognize there is a ladder that we could climb when it comes to our thinking, we can change our perspective, it'll change our outcomes. And so recognize, A, there's a ladder, and B, what does it look like? I go from being an individual to a team member to a team leader and then eventually a team builder. Those are the 4 levels.
Tom, I love this idea of there is a ladder, a hierarchy, a succession planning step, a growth plan that we can put in place regardless of what company we work in, regardless of what field we work in, regardless of what HR has put down as our quote-unquote career ladder, right? Because
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter if you're an associate level 1 to an associate level 4 to a, whatever, Uber-Geek level 22, right? Those those titles really mean nothing outside of your little department or your little company. But I love the idea that we can grow these traits, we can grow these leadership traits, and get more and more involved, more and more responsibility into the process, and more connected with people, and that will help us grow our career no matter what company we're in, no matter what industry that we're in.
Without question. And, I love the way Zig Ziglar said it. He said that you can have anything in life that you want if you help enough other people get what they want. Mm-hmm. And I have found that to be true. If I'm willing to help other people, it's amazing what they'll do in terms of reciprocity and looking out for me and trying to help me with the things I want to accomplish. So I think that's really a key idea, is it's beyond technical competence. We have to think about other people. And how do we move from where we are right now to what's the next step for me? What's the next smallest baby step that I could take that would move me in the direction of getting better? If I'm an individual contributor today and I focus entirely on my geek skills, what could I do to make a connection with a team member, to find out a little bit more about what's going on with them outside of work? It's amazing how far that'll go.
So let's take it back to the first level of the four levels of thinking as a geek leader. Let's take it back to the Uber Geeks. Honestly, Tom, I've seen people who get stuck before they even get to this level, right? So what I mean when I say they get stuck is I don't see them leading themselves. I see them waiting around passively to be told what to do, and they're just kind of showing up on time because you tell them when to show up. And then once they get to the office, they're like, okay, what do I do next? And they're really, really doing themselves a disservice. Yeah, very reactive, very much of just kind of waiting to see what the boss is going to tell them. And no matter who the boss is, whether it's their manager, whether it's a project manager, whether it's just another contributor on the team, but they really just need a lot of guidance and a lot of hand-holding and a lot of management, right? And I've seen people, fresh out of college this way, of course, and then I've also people that have 10 years of experience in their field that are still stuck in this like pre-Uber-Geek level where they are not being proactive and they are not leading themselves. They are not really being a strong individual contributor. They're not showing up. Is it just me? Is it just in the areas that I've seen, or have you seen people stuck in this area as well?
Well, I mean, it's true that a lot of us don't ever like to think. We don't like to think about things that are outside of our area of expertise or outside of our area of comfort. So it's not uncommon to find that even in the geek space that we get comfortable. I mean, we make a decent living as geeks, right? We can the work environment's not terrible. We're not sweating it out for 60 hours a week or 80 or 100 hours a week in a factory with no air conditioning. Right? Most of us have pretty easy life comparatively, no matter how stressful our projects are, how many hours the boss wants from us. We still, I mean, it could be a whole lot worse for us. And so I think a lot of us kind of get comfortable and get a little complacent. And when I was leading teams in a Fortune 500, one of the things I told my guys and ladies is I said, you have up to this point in your career been measured only on technical competence. And there are two other areas that I'm going to measure you on. The first is interacting with other people. You can't be a jerk. You don't have to be super friendly, but you can't be a jerk to people. People have to be willing to work with you. And then the second area is one of business. Why do people buy what we sell? And I'm not kidding you, Chad, when I had somebody say to me, look, we're the IT department. They have to buy from us.
No, right? They don't.
That company outsourced their IT department.
Yeah.
And we had 1,100 people in IT, and they outsourced those people. So, just because we're the IT department, that's not good enough. And I think a lot of us kind of believe, well, look, I'm smart and there are all kinds of geeky problems and people are always going to need my geeky help. And so I'll just show up and they'll tell me what to do. And that is a career path for you, but it's going to be fairly limited. If you want to be able to increase your income, if you want to have, one of the big challenges I always saw with my geeks was frustrated about limited resources, frustrated about limited schedule and limited time. Well, how do you get those things to change? You have to influence people. And if you can start to recognize that you could be able to become an advocate to help others understand how complex the problem set is or how big an impact it's going to have on the business when you implement this new system, when you start to have those types of conversations, all of a sudden the business people are more willing to say, oh, so what you're saying is you need more hands? or you need more time, or you need different technology, that's a much better conversation than, hey, are all the tasks done on the to-do list?
Right. Right. Yeah, I think one of the biggest struggles that really smart people don't comprehend or they're not thinking about is all the geeky technical stuff is slowly or quickly, depending on how you look at it, becoming commoditized, right? So there are great individuals across the world that are in developing countries that are educating themselves and they're learning the technical stuff, just like you and I did way back in whenever we were doing it, right? They're learning it as well, and they're stepping up, and they're hard workers, and they want to exceed, and they want to learn all the geeky stuff. And so just by the forces of the global economy, the prices for that skill set is, not as valued as maybe it used to be. And that doesn't mean that you can't grow your career and still have an awesome career as a technical person, as a geek doing geeky things. But just the overall global economy means that now you have a lot more competition. And if you're just that individual who's sitting there at work going, hey, look, they can never fire me. Like I'm the guy or gal that keeps this system running. And without me, this whole system's going to fall apart. And if the system falls apart, they wouldn't know what to do. Well, I guarantee you there's somebody at that business going, okay, how can we get rid of the system that's constantly breaking, and it requires Chad to be here 24/7 doing nothing, adding no value to the business other than keeping the system running? How can we get rid of that system? How can we replace it? And either focus Chad on something more higher valuable to the company, or just like, I'm sorry, but let him go,
Absolutely. And I think when we recognize that our job is not to build technology, as much as we love technology. And I used to be fairly geeky, and I love the geekiness. I love that part of it. It was such a joy to me. But when we recognize that nobody buys technology because they want to buy technology, they buy technology because they want something else. It's a means to an end. Even for those of us who are pretty geeky, if we go out and buy that latest Android or iPhone or whatever, it's because we want the experience we have. We want the ability to brag about it, or we want it, whatever. But the idea for the business, they're not buying your technology solution because it's your baby and it's beautiful. They're buying your technology solution because you solve a business problem for them. And when you start to speak the language of the business person, it dramatically changes the impact that you can have and the resources that you'll get, candidly. You'll be able to get more people for your projects. You'll be able to get bigger projects. Things are going to go better from a budget perspective when you start to think that instead of thinking, I am a technology person who delivers technology, when you start to think, I'm a business person, I solve problems for the business, I happen to use technology and love using technology to do it. I'm always looking for ways to leverage technology to improve the business. When you start to put that filter on it, all of a sudden, it changes the interaction and conversations that you have with your customers.
So, Tom, in just a moment, I want to ask you about how we make these transitions through the 4 levels of thinking as a geek leader, and where do people naturally get stuck? Like which levels, which rungs on this ladder are the hardest to climb? But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Are you new to podcasting? Are you looking for a fast, high-quality, yet budget-friendly podcast production team? Let TransSource Media take care of you. With a team of professional audio and video editors, writers, and graphic artists, they can help you build your podcast from planning, post-production, and platform submission. Using only cutting-edge software and studio equipment, they're here to make each and every show sound at its best. To get a free quote, please visit www.transsourcemedia.com or send them an email at marketing@transsourcemedia.com or call them at 209 888-505-5693. TransSource Media, transforming businesses through the power of multimedia. Okay, we're back with Tom Cooper. Tom is a technical geek. He's been rocking and rolling in his career, but he really made huge progress in building his career when he learned that, you know what, leadership is a skill that can be learned. It is not something that necessarily you're just born with this charisma and you have all this leadership ability within you, that anyone can learn leadership, and that learning the tenets of leadership will actually drive you to higher states in your career, no matter what career that you're in, including super technical, geeky people. And so Tom has developed this 4 levels of thinking as a group leader, as a geek leader. And we've been talking about the 4 different stages and what they all mean. So we've got the Uber-Geeks, which are the individual contributors, then the team members that are going to have to connect with people and influence people. Then we start moving up into that team leader space where we are the boss and we're not there necessarily to do the hands-on individual contributor work anymore, but we're now helping other people become team members and start to move up that chain. And then the team builders are those succession planners. Those are the people who are really building the next level of leaders so that they can, move leaders up into their positions, and then they can move on to bigger and better things. So Tom, as people start going down this path, do you see any one of these individual rungs that are more problematic than others for people to either learn how to get into or just really find their fit and find their groove once they start working in that area?
Yeah, there definitely are some trends. The first is one you touched on earlier in our conversation, and that is that we're not even aware that we should be aware. And I spent many years in my career that way, that I was thinking about, man, I can't believe they wouldn't give us more resources, or I can't believe that the timeline is so short, or I can't believe that they whatever. Why would they make this stupid decision? I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I criticized somebody in leadership for a decision that they made, and sometimes rightfully so, but I'd have a lot of nickels. And so realistically, I think a lot of times we get stuck right at the very beginning. And the first kind of path is to recognize that there is a system, that there is a process, that there is something other than, same stuff, different day. That there is a way that we can alter our outcomes. When we start to see that we can alter our outcomes, that changes our perspective. So it starts with our ability to start thinking differently. We recognize there is a pattern of thinking that we're in, and that we can change our pattern of thinking. And what pattern of thinking should we adopt? That's the first kind of aha moment. And that's when we can say, oh, wait, now if I want to do something bigger than the amount of work that I could personally deliver, how would I do that? Oh, maybe if I could get some help. So how can I get help from other people? And that's that first transition from saying I'm not just an individual contributor. I'm not only independent, maybe I'm interdependent with other people. So that's a first kind of aha. A second one is when you're on the team and you realize that maybe there'd be some value as opposed to just being responsive to the team and interacting with the team in a positive way. Maybe you could start to lead the team, not necessarily as the boss, but maybe you're the one who's going to say, oh, I see an opportunity to take initiative here. I see a place where the team is kind of getting stuck, and I could say, hey, why don't we get a quick work session going on this? And why don't we get somebody to take some notes about who's going to do what when, and take some initiative to help lead and influence and help the team navigate through some of those things. That may be a major shift in your thinking. Instead of saying I'm going to be responsive or I'm going to be cooperative or collaborative, saying I'm going to be starting to take initiative within the team to help the team achieve more, to help the boss look better, to help us all win. And when you help other people get what they want, they're much, much more inclined to help you get what you want. So I think those are the two major kind of paradigm shifts. One key idea here is that leaders are learners, that we ought to be constantly learning, and not just in the technology space. We're conditioned to do that because technology goes extinct every 18 months.
Right.
So how do we begin to learn to think differently? How do we begin, the people who achieve at the highest levels, they constantly reinvest in themselves. And this is an idea that I think is critically important. What's your E to E ratio? What's your entertainment to education ratio? If you look at your budget and the amount of money you spend on movies and going out to eat, and maybe your cable subscription and Netflix and whatever else and toys, how does that compare with what you invest in you? Because if you're not going to invest in you, why should anybody else? And let me just lay this out there. What if you invested 10% of your income in your own personal development? How would that change your outcomes? How would it change you? How would it change your work? And I love that idea from Darren Hardy from Success Magazine, that E2E ratio. What's your entertainment to education ratio? Because for most of us, we get stuck because it doesn't occur to us. And we say, wait a minute, I make $100,000 a year. You want to spend $10,000 a year on education? Are you nuts? Well, the people who are the highest successful people spend at least that. And realistically, how much did you spend last year? Maybe double or triple or quadruple what you spent last year. It's probably going to be nowhere near 10 grand. So,
and not just the money, right? Not just the revenue, the income, but also the time, right? How much time do you invest in this, right? So, like you said, the E to E, like how much entertainment hours every night am I spending on, watching movies and playing video games and stuff, which are awesome, which are fun, versus how many hours am I investing in learning something new. And I know there's a lot of folks on the podcast today. They're like, hey guys, like I am spending a ton of time learning the next JavaScript, plugin, right? And I am building the next product. And that's all great. That goes into it. But are you seeing great results from that? Or are you just kind of learning the same stuff that you learned back in college or the same stuff that you learned back when the previous library came out? And now you're just learning a new language or a new syntax on top of it? Or are you really learning something different, like leadership or like communication or like people skills, soft skills, entrepreneurship, business lessons that are really going to add a ton of value to your career? Or are you just kind of learning the same stuff that you already know, but in a different language?
Well, and I will tell you that I spent years of my career believing a lie. And the lie that I believed was if I did great work that I would be rewarded through promotion. That I thought that if my career was going to move up by demonstrating consistent application of excellence in my work, that I would be recognized and I would be rewarded for that. And I didn't have to do anything else. And that was a lie. And I don't know where I learned that lie, but I certainly lived that lie. And the results were I did not move up. And I was shocked. I mean, I remember being shocked at how the organization wasn't recognizing me because I was great at the technical stuff. What in the world is wrong with these people? And it took me a long time to realize the error of my ways, that great work, great technical work is not sufficient. It's not even, and I know this is heresy to say this, it's not even necessary. Now, we want to be great. We love elegance as geeks. We love efficiency. We love beauty in the work that we do. But you don't have to be brilliant because most of the time the business isn't willing to pay for brilliant. So if you can deliver good or even better than good, it doesn't have to be brilliant. And if you focus your attention on delivering what the business actually wants and then growing your skills to relate to other people at the same time, you'll find multiplied results, not just additive results, but actually multiplied results.
Tom, I got so jealous and I got bad attitudes so many times as an individual contributor because I saw people who I didn't have a lot of respect for at the time.
Right.
I'd have tons of respect for it now, looking back, right? But at the time, I didn't have a ton of respect for because they weren't as good as me at plugging widgets together, right? They weren't as good as me.
How do people get promoted? These people aren't nearly as smart as me. They're stupid. How do they get promoted?
How are they always getting recognition? How are they always getting kudos? How are they always getting, the boss coming down and publicly congratulating them on doing something just simple, like
right,
like communicating what the status of the problem is. I'm the one solving the problem. I'm the one solving the problem and fixing the problem, and this person over here is getting the recognition just because they sent an email to the boss saying that there's a problem. Why? That's not fair, right? And
right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I hear you, man. I hear you. It's not what you know, it's who you know, and it's how you can interact with the people that need to know what you know. If you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying, and I'll tell you, I thought for a long time made the mistake of believing that it was just politics, that it was BS, that it was just showmanship, that there was no substance to it. It was all flash, it was all style, and I was disgusted. I had contempt for those people that played that game. And I felt like it would make me a lesser person to play that game. And what I realized is, okay, there are some people that game the system. There are some people that are absolutely climbers who are trying to, they'll position themselves and they'll throw you under the bus in a heartbeat. But for the most part, it's just that they happen to be willing to recognize the value proposition is I'm delivering value to the customer. I need to communicate with the customer. I need to communicate in terms the customer can understand. And the customer says, oh, thank God, I finally understand somebody. And that's where the rewards come. So I was quick in my younger age to say, oh, I'm just disgusted with those people. They're just they've sold themselves out, and I'm never going to do that. But that was wrong thinking. It was just wrong thinking. And you can, one key takeaway from this is to say, don't believe that by being nicer to people and by being intentional to communicate in a language the customer understands, don't believe that that's selling yourself out. In fact, what that's doing is elevating the level of value you deliver, and that will be rewarded organizationally. It will be.
So that sounds like pretty amazing words of wisdom. And tell you what, I'll give you a bonus. One more final words of wisdom before we wrap it up, Tom. And then please share the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Terrific. So, I think for the most part, we want to think about how do we begin to communicate with others clearly. If we can find a way to think about what is the other person's need and how can I put it in terms that they'll understand, that is going to carry you in a huge, huge way to the destination you want to get to. And it starts with recognizing that with one trifling exception, the world is made up of other people. As my mentor John Maxwell says, with one trifling exception, the world is made up of other people. So if folks want to get in touch with me, the best way to do that on the theme of communication is go to the website helpinggeekscommunicate.com, helpinggeekscommunicate.com. And if they go there, they'll find links to my podcast, Becoming a Geek Leader, where I talk about these types of issues and how do we become more effective at connecting with other people and serving other people in a way that's going to allow us to be better geeks.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value this conversation because it's something that I suppressed for many, many years in my career, and I thought it was all about the politics, and I thought it was all about, the people who wore the nicer shirts than me, right, and the people who wore shinier
right.
shoes than me, and the people who just had the gift of gab, and I was this poor, lowly little tech geek that was really happy working on the technology and working on the software development, and really uncomfortable in my social anxiety of trying to learn how to communicate with people. But once I started making those steps along that area, then I lived the 4 levels of thinking as a geek leader, as you taught us here today. And so I can attest that it really works. What you're teaching here really works. So thank you for sharing it, because I think there's a lot of people who have bought in the same way that you and I have bought in earlier in our careers, bought into this lie that you can't change and that you can't learn it, and that it is all just politics. Well, that's not the case. And I just really appreciate you reminding us or teaching us.
Thanks. It's a joy to be able to do it, because I remember very clearly as I began to demonstrate a little bit of competence, and not very much, candidly, but a little bit of competence. I said, I wish somebody had taught me this. Why didn't somebody tell me this?
Right.
So if we can connect with the person who's listening to this and thinking, how can I get better in my career? What can I do? What specific step can I take? I think this is the place to start. Change your thinking, and it's going to change your outcomes in a huge way.
Perfect. Tech Pros, wherever you are at in your career right now, give yourself a little self-assessment and place yourself somewhere on this ladder. Are you that pre-Uber-Geek? Are you just an individual contributor that's sitting there not doing anything? Or are you leading yourself and taking responsibility? Are you a team member who's really trying to influence other people and thinking, gosh, you know what, guys, gals, we have some inefficiencies here and we need to all band together. Like the boss is never going to tell us to organize our GitHub repos, right? We're going to have to do this together. The boss
right.
is never going to tell us exactly what coding standards we need to implement. We need to come up with our own coding standards. So let's band together and do this. Are you that team leader who is the boss, who somehow through might or magic or some other means found your way in a team lead position, and now you're trying to you're trying to get the task done, but are you also helping the team members grow into better team members and grow into leaders? Or are you already a team builder that is building teams and putting teams together? No matter where you're at, do a little self-assessment and determine what the next step is for you and how you can help the other people around you become the next step on their career ladder, right? The next step on their levels of geek leadership, if that makes any sense at all. You've been listening to Tom Cooper, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/192. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Leadership Wednesday, but tomorrow, my featured guest and I talk about technology. On Friday, people in communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. Sunday, being unplugged. And then next week, we kick it off with Motivation Monday, followed by Tuesday, productivity. And then we're back again on Wednesday to discuss leadership. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.